Hello everybody, it's jrobi. Today was a monumental day in chess. Across the world, we have a Clash of the Immortals taking place. It's started today and it's going until the 24th of September. Garry Kasparov versus Anatoly Karpov, the rematch. Well, they've had plenty of matches together, but this one is to commemorate the first time they played against each other for the World Chess Championship back in 1984. So it's the 25th anniversary. And a lot of stuff happened there. The match got stopped, and then Kasparov came back in 1985 and won the World Chess Championship. But the last time these guys faced each other, Karpov won the last match by a score of 2.5 to 1.5. You get a full point for a win and a half point for a draw. But that's beside the point. We have two of the greatest chess players that has ever been seen in chess history squaring off against each other. And like Kasparov, for example, he learned chess at 6 years old, showed amazing talent, went to the Botnik Soviet School of Chess, and he had an astounding 69% win percentage over 2,300 games. His first match in 1984, like I said, against Karpov was stopped. He was leading it at the time 5 points to 3, but then again he came back in 1985 and won it at 22 years old. Can you imagine that? A 22-year-old world chess champion. Karpov, on the other hand, learned to play chess at 4 years of age, and became the world chess champion when Bobby Fischer backed out of the World Chess Championship match. So that probably helped Karpov put some fire under him to prove his abilities in chess, because he didn't really get the title by winning it in a match. So he went on to play in an amazing amount of tournaments. He won over 160 first-place finishes, and he defended his world title against the likes of Anand, Kamsky, Korchnoi. It's just an amazing track record that he had. He had about a 64% win percentage over 3,300 games, which is unbelievable. To put this in perspective, Bobby Fischer had a win percentage of 73%, which is just amazing in and of itself. And Anand, the current world chess champion, is hovering about 63%. So all of these guys that we're talking about and I mentioned are definitely at the top echelons of chess. And to have two of them facing against each other again, that's a treat that, we can't even express in words, really. So let's get right into the first game. So the first game had Karpov playing white and Kasparov playing black. And Karpov opened up with pawn to d4, and Kasparov now plays knight up to f6. From here now white pushes the pawn up to c4, staking the claim here to the d5 square. And Kasparov just decides to fianchetto his bishop now. So he's actually got a lot of games in his database where he'll play a King's Indian defense type setup. This kind of leads into some Grunfeld lines, I believe. But from here he just wants to get that bishop fianchettoed. Karpov actually wants to do the same thing, so he pushes his pawn to g3. Both of the players fianchetto their bishops, and from here now Kasparov pushes his pawn up now to d5. Karpov captures, Kasparov recaptures with the knight, and we can see here that the bishop, of course, is pointing to d4, and the queen is going to be pointing to d4. And once this knight moves over here to b6, there will be a lot of pressure pointing in this direction, so white's going to have to be careful about that. From here now, Karpov thrusts his pawn forward to e4, kicking that knight off, so the knight peels back to b6, and now Karpov develops his knight now to e2. From here, Kasparov pushes his c-pawn forward, attacking the center, and Karpov won't have anything to do with that. He just pushes his pawn up now to d5, so white maintains its center pawns. From here, Kasparov castles, and so does white. From here now, black pushes a pawn up to e6, so Kasparov is trying to chip away at the center early on in the game, which is probably a good decision. But from here now, Karpov just plays his knight up now to c3, continuing on with the development, giving another defender to the square here on d5, and Kasparov now swings his knight over to a6. Play continues now, white pushes the pawn to h3. Now I'm going to go back a move here. The most played move in this position is for white to play knight up to f4, and of course this is giving another defender here to d5, but it's also scoping out the square here on e6 that could be later used as a beautiful outpost for the knight. But Karpov knows his chess, so playing to h3 is definitely not a weakening move whatsoever. In fact, white is standing fairly good here at this position. From here now, black captures the pawn on d5, so Kasparov wants to chip away at that center. Karpov recaptures, and now Kasparov swings his knight up now to c4. Basically what he's going to do is he's going to blockade this pawn from coming down any farther. From here now, Karpov attacks that knight. The knight swings over now to d6, so this pawn isn't going anywhere anytime soon. From here now, Karpov brings his dark square bishop up now to f4, attacking that knight, and Kasparov just plays his pawn up now to b6, so solidifying this pawn chain here, also giving his bishop access to b7, point along this beautiful light square diagonal, and he's not too worried if this dark square bishop comes in and captures the knight, because getting rid of this dark square bishop for a knight would be ideal for black, and Karpov isn't going to do that anyway, but giving his bishop options is basically the point behind that move. From here now, Karpov plays his queen up now to d2, and Kasparov swings his bishop now to b7. So here it is in the fianchetto type position, pointing of course towards white castled king. From here now, Karpov brings his rook over to d1, supporting the queen, giving this pawn here on d5 tremendous defense. We've got the knight, the light square bishop, the queen, the rook, all contributing to the defense of that passed pawn. And, white could capitalize on that later on. So from here now, Kasparov adds an attacker to that pawn. So now we've got the bishop and the knight eyeing that up. But once again, white still has plenty of defenders to keep that pawn safe. So from here now, Karpov pushes his pawn up now to g4, and Kasparov replies queen up now to d7. So Kasparov's probably going to get his rook behind his queen as well. From here now, white pushes the pawn up to a4, and Kasparov pushes the pawn up now to f5. White doesn't take, though. Karpov wants to maintain his pawn, so he just pushes his pawn up now to g5, and Kasparov now swings that rook over to d8. From this position now, Karpov swings his bishop back to g4, and Kasparov actually is going to give up a pawn in this position willingly. He pushes his pawn up now to f4, from which Karpov is going to capture, of course. But what this is going to let Kasparov do is he's going to be able to swing his knight over here to f5. That's going to give the knight the option to come over here to d4, and that's going to be a beautiful outpost for that knight, namely because there's no pawns on the e file or the c file now that can kick that knight, so Karpov would have to actually devote a minor piece to take it off of that position. So from here now, Karpov of course snags up that pawn, and now Kasparov jumps that knight over to f5, attacking the dark square bishop and also eyeing up the square here on d4. Karpov now just swings his knight over to b5. Kasparov trades the knights over, so he doubles up white's pawns, and from here now plays knight over to d4. Now this knight is in a beautiful position. It's cutting off this pawn here on d5. Now of course the way that the black pieces are lined up currently, black isn't going to go ahead and try to attack that pawn, but now we've removed two of the defenders of that pawn, so the queen and the rook are definitely not able to contribute to the defense in this position. Also the knight here on d4 is attacking both the pawn here on b3 and the pawn on b5. So it was a nice little idea that Kasparov came up with in the position. He goes down a pawn, but his position is pretty good. From here now, Karpov makes a blunder and plays knight over to e6, and in fact this is where the game stops. Now I'm assuming what happened was that he ran out of time on the clock, because remember, these aren't standard time control games. Both players are playing in a rapid format, so I think he ran out of time, because even though it was kind of a blunder, let's just take a look at what would happen. The knight can take here on e6, and Karpov would of course have to recapture, at which point black can take the queen here on d2, and once white recaptures, black's going to come ahead in the exchange, because black is now ahead of pawn in the position. But I still think it's worth a shot for white, facing this, because white has a couple things going for it. First of all, it's got the bishop pair. The board is very open. It's got the pass pawn here on e6, so I think it's definitely a playable position, even though white is down a pawn. There are still some fighting opportunities in this position, so that kind of makes me think that what had happened is that the clock just ran out, or there just wasn't enough time on the clock to play the position through, and Karpov resigned. So if anybody knows for sure exactly what happened, I'd love to hear that and get some confirmation on that. But I want to go back to this position. I think that this position here that you see on the screen is going to be the discussion point of this game for decades to come. It's going to go down in history as probably the most talked about part of the game, because Kasparov had some great ideas to get that knight up to d4. We have a very, very equal position. The computer engine analysis scores it like slightly favoring white, but that's insubstantial when you're talking about human players. This position here is any person's game when we're dealing with Kasparov and Karpov, and it would have been so great to see this position played out under standard time controls, with both players having lots of time to think about it, but unfortunately that'll never happen. But what will happen is that there will be a lot of discussion about this position, how we reach this position, potential lines that could have happened in the position, and who stood the better chances of winning and why. So there's going to be a lot of debate and discussion on this position. I think that this is the defining moment of this game, and I think that due to time controls, Karpov just blundered here by playing knight to e6. Yes, he's going to drop a pawn in the position, but like I said, I think white still has some good fighting opportunities. Even if the black swings the rook over here to d8 to take firm control of the d file, white still has that bishop pair, still has a passed pawn, and it's not going to be an easy win for black. So like once again, I think that Karpov either just ran out of time or felt that he didn't have enough time in the position to play it out. But I got to go back here to this position. This is a shining characteristic for me from the game. I'm looking forward to your feedback on what you think about it, and I'm looking forward to doing the videos of the other games. Now, of course, with work, it's going to be tough to get them out as the games happen, but I definitely wanted to get the first one out on the day that it happened. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm looking forward to the discussion and dialogue around the various positions that took place in the game, and yeah, that's about it. So Garry Kasparov versus Anatoly Karpov, 2009. Couldn't ask for a better chess match this year. So take care. Hope you enjoy the video, and we'll see you next time.